I now request Promni ma'am to please present a small token of gratitude to our chief guest, Mr. Rahul Singh, who has spared some time for us from his busy schedule.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Mr. Singh is an expert at connecting the dots, be it ideas, insights, or individual. A Singapore government scholar at NTU and an MBA from IIM Bangalore, he is the secretary for IIMB Alumni Association Singapore, president for Jaipuria Alumni Association, and principal corporate advisory group at IIM Udaipur. He is passionate about education, poverty elevation, technology, cross-cultural understanding, and philosophy. He has advised IIMs on their international strategy and has been solicited by Niti Aayog on several projects. His strategy case studies have been published in an MBA textbook used by many American B schools. He is currently co-writing a book on life stories of 30 selected Singapore government scholars of Indian origin who have taken the road less traveled. I would request sir to please come up on the stage and enlighten the audience with his encouraging and intellectual words.
Okay, good morning, everyone. How was yesterday? How was it? How was it? No comments on that? Exciting. Who found it exciting? Can I have show of hands? You found it exciting? Okay, who found it boring? You can be honest. You're investing your time here, right? It could be boring. Okay, how many of you have had breakfast? How many of you have not had breakfast? So for those who have not had breakfast, I'll give you some food for thought. And those of you who have had breakfast, I think you would be energized enough to listen to me. It is a long talk, as ma'am mentioned, but I'll try to keep it as interactive as possible. So slides are up there. Let me go to the first slide. So look at this picture. There is a picture on the left. There is a picture on the right. Which do you think is more developed? How many of you think left is more developed? Okay. How many of you think right is more developed? And how many of you don't know which one is left, which one is right? Okay, so the picture on your left is Singapore, that's where I live. The picture on the right is my ancestral village where my grandmother used to live. Now, how many of you said the picture on the left is more developed? Can I have show of hands again? Okay. Do we have microphones here? Yeah, we do. Can one of you tell me why? So, one of you, I'm hoping, will be brave enough to share your thoughts. You are brave enough, yeah. Sure. Can we have the microphone over there to the gentleman there in green?
So, the picture on the left, it seemingly appears to be more developed. The presence of recreational activities says that they have already surpassed the basic necessities and are moving into recreational sites. So according to me, it's more developed.
Okay, that's a very good thought. Thank you so much for that. Can we have a round of applause for him? So, which one of you thought the picture on the right is more developed?
I thought the picture on the right was more developed because one on the left has been developed by man, whereas the other has been developed by nature.
Beautiful thought. How many economics students are here, or commerce? You guys are familiar with GDP, right? What is GDP? What do you measure in GDP? One of you, what do you measure? Can somebody raise their hand and tell me what do you measure in GDP? Yeah. Okay, very good. The value of goods and services, that's what you measure. Now, unfortunately, the way we define GDP is how soon you can unearth the earth, bring the resources from the earth onto its surface. That's what the picture on the left is. If you look at it carefully, the nations of the world, be it US, be it India, be it China, everybody is doing just one thing. Taking out the resources which are inside the earth and bringing them on the surface. The faster you do that, the faster your GDP and the more developed you are considered. Right? That's been the case for the last 200 years. That's how we define development. How many tall buildings you have, how many fast cars you have. That's development. Are we missing something here? You've gone silent. There is a problem with that definition of GDP. It totally disregards the nature. It doesn't take into account happiness. It is putting number on your head. Just like schools will put number on your head. You are 90%, you are 80%, you are 70%. Nobody cares about the learning. What do they care about? Rather, what do you care about or your parents care about? The only thing we care about is 96% आया कि नहीं आया, 99 आया कि नहीं आया. Learning हुई कि नहीं हुई मतलब ही नहीं है. We don't care about it. Not important. And that is the problem with that picture. Whether people are happy, doesn't matter. Whether the environment is sustainable, doesn't matter. What matters is the GDP number. Yes, that country on the left has a GDP of 55,000 US dollars, which makes it probably the top 5 in the world. And the one on the right is this country, GDP of I think around 2.5 thousand US dollars per year. And that village probably has half of that. And that's where my father was born, that's where my grandmother used to live. And still, when I go to that grandmother's place, I feel more peace and solace. And I'll come to the reason why. But let me show you something else. I'll show you 3 pictures. Look at it carefully. What is this? Anybody knows this? Who knows this? I would expect somebody in the room to know this. Can we have a show of hand who knows what this picture is? You know what that picture is. Okay, I'll get you a microphone.
It's a crashed aeroplane, Boeing 737.
Why? What is the story behind that?
So
You know the story?
Technical failure.
No, it's not technical failure. It's a human failure. It's a deliberate human failure. Does anybody know what the deliberate human failure in that picture is? How many of you have some idea or have seen this in some context? You have. Okay, we'll pass the microphone to you.
So this was 737 MAX, which
Yes.
was basically MCAS, the failed software that failed to maneuver the plane in the right order, and the training that was given to the pilots was not enough. It was an 1 hour training on the iPad, which was basically not enough for the pilots to know about the full MCAS. That is why the 2 planes crashed.
Can we have a round for applause because he can take it from here. He knows more than I know. Which school are you from? Okay. Thank you so much for that. It's lovely that you know that. So what happened here is, in the aviation industry, you have 2 giants. Do you know the 2 giants? Airbus and Boeing. They were competing. 28% of the market is Airbus, 38% is Boeing. Airbus came up with, they have this famous aircraft called A320. Probably most of you have flown on that, right? How many of you have taken flights before? Okay. So if you've taken a domestic flight in India, most likely it was an Airbus A320. Now Airbus came up with a new model, which was an enhanced model of Airbus 320. What that model did is, engine was bigger, and it has 15% better fuel efficiency. That is a lot of money in aviation where, you know, so many airlines are going bust, right? So 15% better results means survival and death in aviation. So that's what Airbus did. What do you think Boeing did? Exactly what that gentleman said. What Boeing did, they came up with a bigger engine. The only problem, that engine did not have enough room to be put on the plane. So what do? You put it slightly higher than where the engine is supposed to be. Because of that, some of you are physics students, you will know center of gravity shifts. So the plane started to tip upwards. To compensate for that, they made a software which deliberately, MCAS system that he talked about, puts the nose of the plane down. No matter what pilots are doing, the system will push it down. So this was the cause of failure, which led to the death of 187 people in Ethiopian Airlines, and there was another crash in Lion Air. Today, this plane is grounded. You can't fly that plane. All because they were trying to compete their competitors. They didn't have a purpose. And I'll come to the purpose bit in a bit. What is this? Anybody had that phone? I have put that picture to infuse some humor here. So, anybody has seen that picture or knows what that picture is? I think most of you would know, right? Can we have a show of hands? How many of you have seen that picture or know what that picture is? Okay. So, let's have a microphone to somebody at the back.
The Samsung Galaxy Note 7 battery failure, which usually caused fires and explosions in the phones,
Correct.
whether or not they were charging or simply put in the pocket.
Yes, and that's why you couldn't take this phone on the aeroplanes. If you had this phone and you walked into an airport, they will ask you if you have that phone. They will confiscate your phone, give you a receipt saying that you can refund it at any Samsung center globally. You couldn't fly with that phone in your pocket. You know what the reason for that was? What's the biggest competitor for Samsung? Apple. They came up with a product. These guys were in a rush. They want to outdo Apple. They want to make the cycle of producing new phones sooner than 1 year, right? So they had immense time pressure. Under that time pressure, they made that phone. Just one problem. There is a battery in every phone. Battery has positives and negatives. You have electrodes. Those electrodes were so close that they caught fire. So that's the result of competition, if you'd like. The last picture, that's me there, obviously. What's in the background, though? Anyone of you knows what's in the background? I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere in Europe. It's in Ukraine.
It's a Chernobyl
Yeah,
factory.
who is saying that? Can we
So,
have?
so we
Yeah.
So it's a Chernobyl factory.
Yeah,
So,
what is Chernobyl factory?
Actually, it's a nuclear-based factory which had an explosion over there.
Yes. That thing had an explosion in 1986. And that picture was taken in 2016. You stay more than a day there, you will not come back. So, you know, there is a sarcophagus behind that aluminum building. That is actually encasing the reactor that busted 30 years back. Do you know how much that cost the European Union to make that? It was 2.2 billion euros. That's what it cost to build that sarcophagus, so that the radiation from there is not oozing out after 30 years, by the way. So those are the three pictures I wanted to show you. So what am I trying to show you? Does anybody have a clue what I'm trying to show you?
We had the USSR, which had to beat out the NATO and the US in the weapons race. So when you have competition to such an extent, that it may become lethal for you as well.
Very good. Can we
It
have a
may
round
go
of
bad.
applause? Hold on to that thought. When you have competition, it becomes lethal. Does that only happen to corporates? How many of you have faced lethal competition in the last 1 day or last 12 years or 16 years of your life here? Anybody? Can we have a show of hands? How many of you have faced lethal competition? Nobody. Nobody. Okay, only you have faced lethal competition. Okay. Nobody else has faced lethal competition. All of you have faced healthy competition. Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because in my time when I was on the other side, it wasn't the case. I'm not sure if you're shy or whatever, I'll take it as given. None of you have faced lethal competition. Okay. Soon you will, when you come to the corporate world. Okay? If you have not already. Okay, my favorite quote. The business of business is business. Who said that? Who said that? We have some quizzing masters here, quizzing geniuses. Commerce students. How many of you are commerce students? Do you know who said that? None of you knows who said that? Okay. There is a guy called Milton Friedman. He got the Nobel Prize in 1976, if my memory serves me right. That guy said that. The business of business is business. Let that sink in. The business of business is business. How many of you understood that? Raise your hands. Or is it too boring now? I should already stop. How many of you think it's too boring? I should stop now. Be honest. Okay, I'll ask this again. How many of you understood that? The business of business is business. Show of hands. Nobody understood? You understood? Can you explain it to the rest of them? I'll get you a microphone.
The business of business is business means that in business, the thing you want to do is business, nothing
else.
Nothing else.
Okay, that's great. That's what exactly it says. In business, your business is business and nothing else. So what happens when that is your guiding principle? What happens when that is your guiding mantra? I'll show you what happens. This is what happens. So on the bottom there is a line there which says, just because communism failed, does that make capitalism automatically right? Does it? Somebody, you talked about USSR and US, right? That was before the Cold War, 1991, before the Berlin Wall fell. Just because, and I'm conscious I'm not using the word socialism, I'm using the word communism. Just because communism failed, does that make capitalism automatically right? So capitalism is all about making more money. More money for whom? More money for the people who own the businesses. Not for individuals, not for people who work there, not for society. That's what capitalism is. Make more money. More and more and more and more of it. With the result, 8 people in the world have more wealth than 3.8 billion people. 3.8 billion people, by the way, is 50% of the world's population. 8 people on the planet have more wealth than 50% of the world's population. Is that fair? A lot of you will be studying very hard, getting 90%, being board toppers. The sad reality is, you will be working for somebody else to make that person rich, sacrificing your own dreams. Look at the Indian context. 9 richest Indians have more money than 50% of the people in this country. The last line, 13.6 crore people live in debt and have been like that since 2004. 13.6, by the way, is 10% of India's population. 1 in every 10 person. That's what capitalism does to you. And don't get me wrong, I work for a corporate. I'll tell you what is wrong with that, and I'll tell you what needs to be fixed there. So, I think in 2013, these 2 gentlemen, John Mackay and Raj Sisodiya, they came up with this book. It's called Conscious Capitalism. There are 2 words there, conscious and capitalism. I think most of you have some idea of what capitalism is. Some of you may know what conscious is. Principal ma'am and I were having this discussion yesterday, what consciousness is. And in the course of discussion, we discussed that probably people confuse that with conscience, which is totally different. If you want to understand what conscious or consciousness is, probably it's easier if you understand what unconscious means. What does unconscious mean? That probably you would know. Anybody can tell me what unconscious means? Yeah, what does unconscious mean? Unaware. Very good.
Unawareness.
Yes. So conscious is nothing but awareness. How aware are you about yourself? That's what consciousness is. It's nothing to do with morals. It's nothing to do with ethics. It's just being aware of yourself. The more aware you are, the more conscious you are. And each one of you here may have a different level of consciousness. When we talk about evolution in biological terms, we talk about physical evolution, right? From fish to reptiles to birds to mammals. That's physical evolution. When we talk about consciousness here, we're talking about, in some sense, spiritual evolution, if I would use that word. So each one of you are Homo sapiens. But does each one of you have the same level of consciousness? Maybe not. You might be at the different stage of your journey. Some of you realize who you are. Some of you are yet discovering yourself. So consciousness is nothing but being aware of yourself. It's the opposite of unconscious. When you are running on the ground and you fall, you don't know where you are, that's unconscious. When you know where you're headed, that's consciousness. So conscious capitalism is nothing but capitalism which is aware of where they're going, aware of what their purpose is. By the way, most companies don't have a purpose. That might shock you. Most companies only have one purpose: to sell you things which you don't need at a price that you can't afford, using a bank loan that you don't need or don't want. That's the purpose for most of the companies. But some companies go beyond and over that. And these are the companies which are the companies that you would like to work for, the companies that are changing the world, the companies that really will be there for much longer, will generate more profit. Sounds counterintuitive, but I'll just come to that in a minute. So the whole idea of conscious capitalism is based on this premise that profit is not the only motive. It talks about 3 P's: profit, planet, and people. Now, a lot of businesses only think of profit. They don't think about the other 2. When you start thinking about people, when you start thinking about planet, and when you think of profit as an afterthought, as a natural byproduct of caring for the planet and looking after your people, that's when you are really conscious about what you're doing. If your only motive in the game is to make more profit, you won't last that long. You will burn out yourself. I can give you example from your own life. If your only motive from an examination or from a subject is to get the highest possible marks or grades in that subject, it'll burn you out very soon. I know so many IIT toppers, rank 1. Just look at the last 10 years IIT toppers rank 1. Look at where they are. What shift have they made in the world? What changes have they made? In fact, most gold medalists from the universities will fail to make any change in the world or in their own life because they don't have a purpose. The purpose was to get a gold medal. After that, no clue. As long as there was a syllabus, they were able to deliver. The problem with life is that there is no syllabus. And the problem with life is there is no mummy, papa, teacher, uncle, auntie, neighbors telling you what to do. Or even your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. You need to figure that out. It's true for you, it's true for corporates. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because majority of you will be working in corporates, either in capacity as workers or as entrepreneurs. So it's important that you understand who you are. And it's also important that you build a company that knows what they are. Fair? Everyone with me so far? Anybody bored? Raise your hand. I'll give you the permission to leave the room. Don't worry, I'll talk to ma'am. Shall I continue? I can stop here. Stop. Continue. Okay. So this is a slide which is one of my favorite slides. Anybody seen this before? Where have you seen that? It's a Japanese?
It's a Japanese book or something.
Okay, maybe you pass that to the lady, yeah?
Can I sit and like answer?
Yeah.
Like ikigai is a Japanese word which means like the reason why you wake up every morning, and the actually the secret to the most of the centenarians long lives and the Japanese centenarians.
Okay.
So it's.
Have you read the book?
Yeah, I have half
Okay.
of it.
Great. So we'll hold on to you. So why do you get up in the morning?
Because I have to study.
No. What is? You said something in the beginning.
My passion is like to do something for myself before I pass out, and do something like, which is the pinnacle of my school life, something like that.
What would that be?
Something related to economics, because I love economics, and maybe history, because these are the two favorite subjects of mine.
Are they your favorite subjects, or they have been thrust upon you?
No, they are my favorite subjects.
Okay, that's great. So exactly what she said. Ikigai is essentially the reason for being. That's a literal translation. Why do you exist? And the reason why Japanese people who have been following Ikigai have been living long, as she said, sentinels, those people who live 100 years and more, is because they're happy. When are you happy? You're happy when you do what you want. As he said, when you wake up with a purpose, when you know why you're waking up. She's waking up because she wants to do something in history or economics, maybe combination of both. Maybe talking about the economic history of India, who knows? A favorite world's best-selling book comes out of that passion. I would love to read that actually if it ever happens. Have you thought of it in those terms? Okay, fair enough. So essentially, if I were to sum that in one line, Ikigai is doing what you're passionate about, right? And then using your skills in that passion to solve for a world's problem such that you get paid for it. The last line is important, such that you get paid for it. How many of you like to sing? Raise your hands. I'll not ask you to sing, don't worry. Okay. How many of you think that the world needs better melody? You guys don't think the world needs better melody? Or you do? Okay. Now how many of you think that your singing is actually going to get you money? Anybody in the room who thinks their singing is going to get them money? You think so? Okay. That's the point I'm trying to make. The last line is important. You need to solve for a world's problem such that you get paid for it. You might love singing, you might love painting, but the solution that you're trying to provide needs to be good enough such that somebody pays for it. Otherwise, you will end up a bathroom singer, which most of us are, right? So the last line is important. Why? Because, see, I could have picked examples from India, but I purposefully picked this example from Japan because usually in the Indian context, what we say is you follow your passion, money will follow. We don't really give a thought to it. Now, I want you guys to think about that. Think about what unique skills you have that you will use to solve for a world's problem such that you get paid for it. Of course, you need to have passion in that. Otherwise, you'll be able to solve nothing. Not even your monthly paychecks. You can't even solve for that. Now, this is important for individuals. It's all the more important for corporates. So now we are getting into the core of what I want to talk about, which is conscious capitalism. So the first question which I posed there is conscious capitalism an oxymoron? Oxymoron means differing ideas in one word or one line. Yeah, you had something to say. I'll get you a microphone. Hold on. You don't have to say. Oh, you're discussing what is oxymoron. It's not a moron.
It's a literary device, right?
Yes, and what does it mean?
I forgot. That is what we were.
Okay, anybody can help explain what oxymoron is? Okay. Somebody who has not had the microphone before. Okay, over there back. Yeah, that lady in red. Shankar, you can pass it to the lady in red.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Oxymoron basically means two words of completely opposite meanings put together in a phrase.
Yeah, I'll give an example. He was found missing, right? So, conscious capitalism. So, consciousness is being aware of yourself. In some sense, it's doing good. That's what essentially it means. And capitalism is making more money. So, is that an oxymoron? How many of you think that's an oxymoron? Raise your hands high, high, high. So that's an oxymoron. Okay. How many of you think it's not an oxymoron? You can make money while being good. Okay, there is some hope there. How many of you don't know what to think about? Okay. Okay, fair enough. So the first question is it an oxymoron? I will come to it. It's not. There have been studies done on it. I'll give you a Harvard paper on that later. Is it impractical? Impractical? Can you be good? Can you be doing good for the planet, for the people, and make money? You can? You can? How many of you think it's not possible to be good to the planet, to be good to your people? People means people who work for you and people who you serve, and make money in the process. Possible? Not possible? Possible. Okay. Okay, another one of my favorite slides. How many of you are result driven? Nobody. How many of you are result driven? Come on, it's a simple question. Raise your hands high up. Okay, think for yourself. What result are you driving? What result is it that you're seeking? Can any one of you would like to take that question? What result are you seeking? So can we have a show of hands again? How many of you are result driven? Okay. What's the result you're seeking? You want to answer that? You have already answered though, right? So I'll look for somebody who hasn't had the microphone yet. Anybody who hasn't had the microphone yet, you're live on Facebook, probably 10,000 people are looking at you. I don't know if it motivates you or demotivates you, but that's a reality. How many of you are result driven? Okay. That lady in the middle, yes, please stand up. I'll pass you the microphone.
I think the result that I seek for is a successful life, because after all, that's what I need.
What does success mean to you?
Success means to me, that's a difficult question, you know that?
Yeah, so think about that difficult question. What does success mean to you? Because you said you're result driven,
yes,
and your result is success.
yes.
But you haven't defined that result. You haven't defined that success.
Well, that would be something doing good for the planet as well.
As well after hearing this talk, or it was already...
No, it was from, you know.
Okay.
Not just after hearing the
What
talk.
if that doesn't happen? You try your best and it doesn't happen.
I won't be sad, because I knew I did it. I tried actually.
Okay, so you probably got the essence of that slide. And most likely, you are actually effort driven.
Maybe. But I think myself to be a result driven person.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'll explain that in a bit.
Sure.
How many of you think you should be effort driven? How many of you know the difference, effort and result? You know too much, I have to ask somebody else. Okay, how many of you know the difference between effort and result? You have spoken before? Okay. Anybody who has not spoken before wants to explain what result and effort means? What the difference is? Nobody. I think it's getting boring at this point, right? Okay, I'll ask one more time, and I'm under immense time pressure because I want to also give you the opportunity to ask questions. So let's quickly get this going. How many of you are effort driven? How many of you are result driven? What's the difference? Yeah, go ahead.
To put it simply, result-driven people look forward to the destination, whereas effort-driven people look forward to the journey and how it enriches.
Absolutely. A round of applause for that. Which school are you from?
Study hall.
Okay, very good. So that's the difference. Are you enjoying the journey or are you just looking at the milestone? Nobody can guarantee you that you will reach that milestone that you've set for yourself in your imaginary world. The only thing that you guarantees is the effort that you can put in. That's the only thing you have. You really have no control on results. You are not the only person, you are not the only factor that goes into making that result. N number of other things go into that. A lot of you might want to be board toppers. A lot of you want to have like 99% in an exam. You might fall sick that day. The examiner might have had a fight with his wife or husband. And your English grades can get affected by that, maybe not math. You may not become the topper. The other problem with that result-driven approach is you have already fixed your destination. Once you have fixed your destination, you will do whatever it takes to make sure that you reach that destination, including methods that are not advisable, unethical methods. So many students get caught every year cheating in examination because they have fixed their result. I want to get into IIT, I want to get into an MBBS course, I want to get into this, that and the other. Once you have fixed that, you will do whatever it takes to reach there. The problem is that it's not just you, it's the corporates also who do that. That Samsung phone was a result of that. They had an end goal in mind. They're working backwards. In 9 months, I need to make this phone, come what may. Yes. No, I'm not saying that. What am I saying? You know what I'm saying. You don't know, okay. What I'm saying is, have goals, but enjoy the journey. If you have set goals whereby you don't enjoy the journey, whereby you have set goals for yourself, but you don't have a purpose why you should get up in the morning at 8 a.m. on a Monday, something is wrong. It's good to have goals, because if you don't have goals, you don't know where you're going. But it's also important to know how you are reaching there. What's the journey? That's what I mean by goal-driven versus effort-driven. And in the bottom, I put something called corporate karma. Everybody has a karma. By the way, yesterday there was a debate over here on karma. So karma is not the result. Karma is your action, the effort. Karma is your intent. Karma is your thoughts. Results is not karma. The only control you have is your thoughts, your actions. Results is not something that you control. That's not karma. Similarly for corporates, the only thing they can control is what they do, not the result. That's why it's very important for you to know what you're doing. Results is an automatic outcome of your efforts plus various other factors that go into it. Right? I mean, you might be designing the world's fastest car. Tomorrow the government says, hey, the speed limit is 60 km an hour. Duh. Will your car sell? All your desires and ambitions gone for a toss. So that's the problem with being so-called result-driven. You fix a result, you start working backwards. And in that process, you will do a lot of things that you're not supposed to. That was the message in that slide. Okay, these are the 4 pillars of conscious capitalism. Now, the number 1 says conscious leadership. How many of you have heard this? Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. Heard it? So what it means is that conscious capitalism starts from the leader. The leader has to be conscious. The leader has to know where they're headed. Only a leader who is conscious can create a conscious company, can create conscious capitalism, can create an entity that is conscious of where they are going. So it starts with the leader. The leader has to know what they are doing. Second one is stakeholder orientation. Do you guys know the difference between stakeholder and shareholders? No? Who knows what a shareholder is? Sure, go ahead.
A shareholder is just the one who holds a part in the capital of the company, whereas a stakeholder is a much broader group, inclusive of all the people concerned with anything to do with the working of the company. Or
exactly. Can we have a round of applause? So shareholder is people who have given you the money, who have invested in your company. Stakeholder is every and anybody that's affected by the deeds of your company. much broader. Shareholders is paisa kaun de raha hai. Stakeholder is who is getting affected. You set up a factory here, people around in that village get affected. They are not your shareholders, but they are your stakeholders. You have a responsibility to them. People who work in your factory, they are not your shareholders, but they have a stake. Whether your company does good or bad, they have a stake in that. They have a say in that. It matters to them. It matters to their life. It matters to their children. That's stakeholder. The government has a stake. There is something called externality in economics, right? You guys have studied that, positive externality, negative externality. So anybody who has an externality linked to the company is a stakeholder, has a stake in it. So in conscious capitalism, you're not just thinking shareholder, you're not just thinking return on investment for the shareholder, you're thinking stakeholders. What is the return for the people that are working here? What is the return for the society in which we operate? Much broader. Right? Next one is conscious culture. We have already covered that. So consciousness, as I said, is basically being aware. Linked to that is the concept of dharma. By the way, dharma is not religion, okay? That's another mistranslation because English language is unfortunately not ripe enough and not potent enough to translate many of our concepts. Dharma is actually the innate nature of something. That's all it is. And the innate nature of humans is to do good. How many of you think that's correct? The innate nature of humans is to do good. You don't have a thought? How many of you think the innate nature of humans is not to do good? Anybody in the room who thinks that the innate nature of humans is not to do good? You think it's not to do good? You'll need to go for counseling, by the way. So the innate nature of humans is to do good. If there are no constraint, if you leave a human to themselves, where they're not being selfish, they will want to do good for others. That's the innate nature. That's why dharma very often gets mistranslated as religion, because most religions in the world talk about being good. But dharma actually is your innate nature. I'll explain that a bit further. On the material world, it's called prakrit. What that means is, the prakrit of, let's say, fire is to burn. That's what it is. That's the innate dharma of fire. It burns, it's hot. That's the innate nature of fire. The innate nature of water is to get wet. That's the dharma. Similarly, the dharma of a human is to do good to others. It's to do good to others. That's your innate nature. Now you may get polluted. You may get a layer that corrodes your vision. But essentially, on the very core of it, your nature is to do good to others. That's what it is. Right? Then the next concept is called swabhav. Swabhav, you understand what that means? Suna hai ye word? Swabhav? Nature. Swabhav is dharma or prakriti on a human level. इसका स्वभाव कैसा है? इसका nature कैसा है? Right? So, swabhav is knowing your own bhav, swabhav. So, each individual needs to know their swabhav. अगर आपको लड़ना अच्छा लगता है, if you like to fight, fight for the right cause. First figure out who you are. If you're like me, who likes to talk, and I'm a very talkative person, in my school I used to get there used to be a class monitor who used to note down the name, found talking in class. I used to top that list. Today I'm also talking. I knew my swabhav. My swabhav was to talk. I use it to my advantage, to talk to people. As they say, nothing is good or bad. It's what you make out of it. If you like to fight, fight for the gold medal for India in Olympics. Right? So you need to know your swabhav. Similarly for corporates, each corporate needs to know their swabhav. What is it that they exist for? What is it that they are solving for? That's very important. The last one is higher purpose, which I think is clear by now if you have read the other three. What is the purpose? And I said most companies don't have a purpose other than selling you things that you don't need at a price that you can't afford, using a bank loan that you don't want. That's the purpose of majority of the companies. But you need to have a higher purpose. I believe most of you, when you go out of this talk, will have a higher purpose. At least that's my hope. Okay, now here is the funny thing. So I was trying to prepare this slide last night. I kind of finished this at 2 a.m. in the morning. The irony is that Raj Sishodia and John Mackay, they came up with this concept in 2013. And when I looked at our own text in India, it's our own wisdom which has been repackaged and sold us back. It's a bit like yoga. 70, 80 years back, it became fashionable in the US, came back to India, suddenly it was cool. Then a certain Baba Ramdev comes and you know the story. Same thing with turmeric. We know turmeric is good. They sell it as golden latte in London for $6 or £6. Something which your grandmother was always telling you. You didn't listen. Now it's fashionable because it's golden latte. It's no longer that haldi ka doodh. Right? Became fashionable. All this was there. Then some people in the West called it conscious capitalism. Suddenly the magic started. Okay, we have woken up. This was there in your books. Just had to turn around. Just had to turn your pages. Every single word there is a Sanskrit word. I'll go through it one by one. The first one is saying Lok Sangram. Lok means world or people, because the world is composed of people. Sangram means to collect. Collect for the world. Don't collect for yourself. That's what it's saying. The second one is Lok Saudam. That means the wealth for the world. Don't just collect for yourself. Don't just create wealth for yourself. Create it for the world. Bigger purpose. Next one says Lok Saumitram. Mitra means friend. Lok means world or people. So what that's telling you is, make the world your friend. View everybody as your friend. We come back to the other one. Karya Artham. Artham means meaning. Karya means work. Find a meaning in your work. Hita Artham, which means well-being. Think about the well-being that you are doing for others. Dasya Preeti. Preeti means love. Dasya means servant. So what it's saying is that you should have a servitude attitude. You need to have an attitude of serving people. Sakhya Preeti. That means you need to have an affinity to be friends with everybody. Jagat Preeti. That means you need to love the world. Dama Daya Dana. Dama is restraint or power. Daya is kindness. Dana is charity. All this was there in your books. Then you needed somebody from Singapore to come and tell you that. What I'm trying to say is there is enough wisdom in our own books here. Unfortunately, that's not taught. What's taught is physics, chemistry, maths. What's taught is Newton's 3 laws of motions. What's taught is debit, credit. People forget teaching that. If there are schools from outside of Jaipuria or even Jaipuria school, probably we need to teach that. Because you teach what, you don't teach why. Who will teach the why? The why will come from those books. Okay, this slide is basically telling you what the difference between capitalism and conscious capitalism is. So I think I've covered that, so I'll skip that. Okay, some of you believed, or some of you said that you don't believe that you can be good and also make money. Now that's to burst your bubbles. In 2013, Harvard did a study where they found that conscious capitalism, the companies which are conscious, they actually do 10 times better. In the book, Raj Sishodia found out that brands which are conscious, their returns are 10 times over past 10 years, whereas S&P 500, which is the index of the top 500 companies in the US, their return is only 122%, or they double your return in 10 years. Then the companies which are listed in good to great, this is a book, some of you might have read it, right? They talk about the best companies in the world. Their return is only 3 times. Just look at those numbers. They tell you the story. If you're conscious, your returns are 10 times in 10 years. When you care for the planet, when you care for the people, profit is a natural outcome. That's what it's telling you. Then there are some examples. So Nike spends $90 million on something called Made to Play. There is a program called Made to Play. In that program, essentially what they do is they encourage school-going kids to be more physically active. And they have done this program in a lot of countries, including China, Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. So the idea is that they want kids to be more active, more physically active, so that they are better, they're agile. Okay, some of you might have read the second one, the Tata toilet thing. So I call that WhatsApp wisdom. So these forwards that keep going on WhatsApp. So what essentially happened is that in Tata, they had 2 toilets. One for executives, one for workers. Very common, right? It happens, right? There is one toilet for VIPs and there is one toilet for workers. Has anyone of you read that WhatsApp? Okay, none of you, so I'll share it. So what they did is, workers came to the chairman and they said, sir, what we have noticed is that the executive toilet is quite clean, but ours is not. The chairman listens, goes back to his deputies, asks them, how long will it take to fix it? The deputies told it will take 1 month. Now the chairman wanted it fixed in a day. Do you know what he did? What did he do? Yes. He exchanged the nameplates. Simple, right? So the one which says executive now said workers, and the one which said workers now said executive. Within 3 days, both the toilets were at par. Why did they do that? Because they care. In fact, Tata, I don't get paid by Tata, by the way. In fact, Tata has survived more than 100 years. They were the first company, I think anywhere globally, which said that the work starts from the time a person leaves the home. So they started insuring their workers from the time the person leaves home. Most companies would only do it when you are actually at work. And mind you, this is like a manufacturing company where accidents do happen. So that's Tata for you. Next one is Westpac. That's the biggest Australian bank. They spend 1.2 billion Australian dollars on something. That's enough to put 50 rupee in pocket of every Indian. That's the amount of money they have spent on financial literacy, to tell the people about how to manage their finances. So these companies have managed to create wealth by caring for the planet, by caring for the people. So the message I'm trying to drive home is that this is not some funky concept that's good to write essays. It actually does exist in the real world. And you guys exist in the real world. You guys will be going out there. You guys will be going out there in the corporates. You need to be conscious of this. You need to know why you are doing whatever you're doing. If you don't know the why, your days are numbered. You'll survive 10 years, 20 years, but you won't build a company to last. And that's a basic premise in economics, in finance. We build companies for forever. We assume that companies will be there forever. Any one of you has done a maths where it says a company will only last 100 years? Or 20 years? No. All companies are built to last. Most don't. Why? Because they don't have a purpose. Okay. There is hope. And this is my last slide. So, Homo sapiens are the greatest danger to the planet. Yes, we are. But we are also its only hope. We are the smartest species here. If the problems of the planet can't be solved by us, no one else can solve it. And I have hope there. That's actually a picture from 2 kids from this school. I think one of them is in grade 4, the other one is in grade 6. Parents of those kids had given me this picture last night. The guy on the left is planting neem tree, and the guy on the right is planting ashok tree. And they're not just planting it, they're nurturing it as well. They've been told to nurture it for a number of years to make sure that it grows. This is the hope. You know, the reality about our planet is that actually we don't inherit it from our forefathers, we owe it to the next generation. So whenever you're in the corporate, think of what planet, what legacy you want to give to your kids. I know most of you are very young to think about this, but at some point you will have kids. You always want to give good to your kids, right? You want to leave them a legacy, you want to leave them with money, you want to leave them with good things, good education. What about the planet? What planet will you leave for your kids? That's the last thought I want to leave you with. And one more slide. Some of you would have seen this before, right? So I've come to the end of my talk. It's 9:27. I'm not sure how much more time I have. I have talked a lot. If you have any questions, I will be happy to take it. No questions? Drop dead silence? Stunned? You have a question? Okay.
So I want to ask you what IIMs teach you other as compared to normal MBA school colleges.
See, what IIMs teach you or any B school teaches you, including the B school next door where I'm giving a talk tomorrow, is things like marketing mix, 4P, 5C, debit, credit, strategy, Michael Porter's 5 forces. Now the problem is, after 5 years, you don't remember any of this. That's a reality. I graduated from IIM in 2015. If you were to ask me what I remember of it, very little. The only thing see, the problem with the schools and universities are that they make you literate, but they don't educate you. Education is much broader. 10 years down the line, you will remember that tree that you planted. You will not remember the capillary action by which the water goes up the trunk into the leaves. That you might forget. You will not remember the pollen grain, the style and the stigma and whatnot. That you will forget. You will not remember how to integrate root tan X. You will not remember Coriolis force. You will not remember Sharpe ratio. You will not remember modern portfolio theory. You will not remember the GDP, CIGX. You will not remember all that. What you will remember is the ethos. That's where we fail globally as educators. What IIMs teach you, which other institutes don't teach you? Nothing. All of them teach you from the same book. The same Kotler's book for marketing will be taught everywhere. The same Porter's book will be taught everywhere for strategy. Globally actually, not just in India. They teach you nothing different. What happens though is, because you come to an IIM, you start viewing yourself differently. आपको लगता है कि मैं भी कुछ हूं जो आपको पहले नहीं लगता था. That's what changes. Your own view of yourself changes. Your own confidence changes. But nothing fundamentally changes as such. It's just your perception that changes. Does that answer you? Any other question? Yeah.
Sir, I was wondering if I could take example of two companies like Amazon, a billion-dollar company, and Costco. Amazon is worldwide famous for how they treat their employees, like bad. They treat their employees very bad. Okay, they give like minimum wages wherever they're established. And whereas Costco is like not, of course, a billion-dollar company, but they give their wages like $9 above what their average US pay wages. So when we see like companies like Amazon grow so fast, but like they're still treating their employees bad, but they're growing at that fast pace. What do that like companies like Costco that are treating their employees better? They're giving them holidays. It's like a general store. Costco is like a general store. They give their employees holidays on like all the national holidays of the US. So sir, how can like companies basically like companies want to of course So basically, Milton Friedman also said that the social responsibility of business is to earn profit.
Okay, go ahead. What's your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, so basically my question is, when the small companies like Costco look at Amazon, that have able to reach that height by treating their employees in a really worse way. So, sir, what do like companies?
When was Amazon founded?
I think 2002.
How old is Costco?
Sir, I don't know about that.
It's older than that.
Yes, sir.
I used to play with the tennis ball that Costco used to make.
No, it's a Costco. It's like Costco. C-O-S-T-C-O.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Yep. So, to answer that question, there are two things I will tell you. 20 years in a human history or in a corporate history doesn't define anything. Okay? There were companies like Nokia. There are companies like Kodak. 20 years doesn't define anything. You can get this. Okay, 50 years doesn't define anything. USSR used to be the top of the game because they used to exploit their people. You can reach certain place in short term because you're chasing that goal. You're doing everything to maximize that goal. But 20 years is a very small time frame. The other thing I want to tell you is that stop comparing. It's for the Amazon and Costco to define what they stand for. There is Tata, there is Reliance, right? They stand for totally different values. It's for them, as long as they are at peace with what they are doing. We are not here to judge them.
Basically, my question was like how companies like Costco, like small companies, look at like Amazon and still do what they are doing.
Are you sure they look at Amazon as their competitor? Are you sure?
So it's not about like looking at Amazon. They still wanna like increase their profits, right? They still want to.
Again, the whole talk was profit at what cost, right?
Yes, sir.
So what is the price that you're willing to pay in the long run? And long run is not 20 years. Amazon, I think, was founded in 1999. It's only been 20 years. I could be a bit off here and there by 1 or 2 years, but it's 1999 to the best of my knowledge. That guy is now the single richest man on the planet. Who used to be the single richest man on the planet? Why is he not? Exactly. He paid money to this very state to fight child mortality. See, beyond a point, and this is what you study in economics, beyond a point, the marginal utility of everything diminishes, including money. Right? There is only as much you can get from money. Yes, you need money, but kitna? So once you reach that stature, once you are in that $1 billion club, then you start pledging. You start pledging about giving. There is a pledge going on, you know about that, right? The giving pledge. So each company for itself needs to define what they stand for. Yes, some companies will only maximize profit, but that's their fundamental, that's their core. So be it. The question to you is, what kind of company would you build? An Amazon or Costco?
Sir, obviously Costco.
So that's your answer.
So basically what it is like if we treat our employees better, the quality of the product will be better and the customers the customer satisfaction will be good.
Forget all that, you will sleep better. You will sleep better. Okay? I can take one more question, I guess. And we will have to wrap this up in next 6 minutes. You have a question? Okay.
So my question is that why do people prefer overseas for their studies and their jobs?
Okay. I did my undergrad in Singapore. I came back to India to do my MBA. The reason why I did it is because I had a scholarship to study. I come from a very humble family. I probably would have had to take a loan to study in India. For me, it was very simple. But I think your question is broader than that. So, and probably you know the answer as well. People are trying to maximize different things. Right? When you go overseas, everybody looks at, okay, मैं वहाँ जाऊँगा, I will earn this much. You forget the cost. And not just the cost in monetary terms, the cost of actually the mental, the emotional, and the physical cost. See, by and large, we are a very cohesive society. If you were to become unconscious here, so many of these guys will help you. In a lot of countries, that may not be the case because they are very individualistic societies. They may even view helping you as intruding into your privacy. So, a lot of people prefer study overseas, a lot of reasons. Universities are ranked better. Universities are ranked because they do research better. A lot of people prefer to work overseas because maybe that kind of work is not available here. Or maybe that same work pays you better in another country. Because it pays better, so you can feed your family better back home. You can send your kids to a better school. You can send your parents to a better hospital. A lot of reasons. But essentially, you need to figure out what is your reason. And on that note, by the way, I don't believe in boundaries. I believe in Vasudha Kutumbakam. Go wherever the best solution for your problem is. If you want to be a historian, probably Oxford might be the best place. If you want to be an engineer, probably MIT is the best place. If you want to do an MBA, probably Harvard might be the best place. If you want to make a lot of money, probably Silicon Valley is the place. Why these boundaries? Why do you think in those terms? Overseas, India, Pakistan, Nepal, why do you think in those terms? One last question and we'll call it day. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. So my question to you is that what do you think is the reason why India has much less billionaires in India compared to a country like USA and China? Of course, we got many good entrepreneurs in India, like Mukesh Ambani, Ratan Tata and all those. But why are the numbers so less compared to all those present in USA and China, other developed countries, and as well as developing countries?
See, we joined the race much later. It's only in 1991 that our country opened up, right? Before that, we were in a license Raj. China, under Deng Xiaoping, opened up in 1978. The West has been capitalist for the longest time. The East India Company came here, how many years back? Come on. Do you guys remember Battle of Plassey? All that you remember from your history? That's when they came. Bengal was the first place they came. So, they have been in the game for longer. And because they have been in the game for longer, they have been better at it. We have not played the game for that long. We are now coming onto the world stage. By the way, the richest Asian is actually an Indian. Yeah. So we are joining the race. We are getting better at that game. For the longest time, money was actually considered bad in India. The concentration of money was considered bad. Still, that is the ethos, right? I mean, I just talked about it. The money for the society, not for your individual self. So I won't be surprised that even after 100 years, we don't have as many billionaires in this country because our ethos are different. We don't believe in collecting for personal consumption. We believe in distributing. Right? That's our ethos. That's why you will probably never have as many billionaires in this country as in the US. You will have more philanthropists in this country. The Tatas, and again, I will say on record, I don't get paid by Tata. But if you look at Indian Institute of Sciences, if you look at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, if you go to Jamshedpur, see, a lot of these things are because our values are like that. Those guys came from overseas. Tatas are Parsis, right? They are Zoroastrians. There is something about this land that tells you give. पुराने ज़माने में अगर कोई अमीर हो जाता था तो कुएं खुदाता था. क्यों? Because प्यासे को पानी दो. You go to a restaurant in the West, पानी के लिए भी चार्ज करते हैं. टैप तो होता ही नहीं है. So we will never have as many billionaires. That's my opinion, but I'm not sure. Okay. With that, we conclude. Thank you so much. You have been a lovely audience. And for me, it's been a very fulfilling thing because 2 weeks back, I was sitting in Singapore, ma'am called me and said, can you do a keynote address? So for me, it was fulfilling because, you know, when your teacher, after 18 years of you graduating, calls you and says, can you do a keynote address? you know कि लाइफ में कुछ तो सही कर रहे होगे. पैसे कमा रहे हो नहीं कमा रहे हो पता नहीं, but कुछ तो सही कर रहे होगे. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.